It's good to be with you again. I was on Nancy's Gone Woo Woo website a few weeks back, introducing you to my world of attunement, and in particular one of the techniques that I use really called the Endocrine system, something I have worked with and used for years in my practice, but I felt there was a need for another aspect to begin to put in an appearance in what I was doing, and that's why I started to look into what was potential through the chakra system. To me, it's a system that's been used in Eastern teachings for literally hundreds of years to assist people in meditation, to assist people in a state of deeper relaxation in themselves, and therefore I thought it could be valuable as an aspect of one of the techniques that I used in complementing the endocrine system. So basically I'd mentioned too, for those of you who aren't aware, chakra basically means spinning disc. So it's an energetic field that moves like a spinning disc above and through the body. And for me, it's very valuable part of how I can have these systems complement, because for me, I feel we live somewhat in what I would call a vibrational or energetic layer cake. And the chakra system has its own unique energy field and is somewhat different from the endocrine system in as much as it likes to be worked with at a distance further away from the body if you're working with it with a technique. And the other part of it that I found interesting as I was discovering how to work with it was that it takes a definite sensing in yourself as a practitioner of being very grounded. It's like the energy that empowers or fortifies this field comes very much from the earth, or the earth mother if you want to speak about it that way, and it's like that energy flows up through your body and out and across through your hands. So it's really important when you work in the chakra field to be very grounded as you open up and access this field. It definitely has a lot to do with our emotions and the emotional realm and our feelings in particular, how they are disturbed, and it seems to hold them in the body in a particular way. And I find through the balancing of this system, those emotional things that might be caught begin to be relaxed and set free, and it helps the body overall with that deeper sense of relaxation that has the ability to set us free more in our circumstances. So now I'm going to shift to and show you some of my ways of working with the chakra system, and hopefully that this technique likewise might be useful in whatever it is that you're doing. So now here we are getting ready to actually share in the attunement process again, particularly working in relationship to the chakra field. What I would mention, no matter which of the techniques I work with, I pretty much always start with a balance at the cervicals, because as I mentioned in the previous tape, it's important to ensure a good flow of energy down through the body, through the brain into the cerebral spinal fluid and down, because it really energizes whatever technique you're going to use. And then likewise, the first 4 endocrine glands I feel are really to empower and work creatively with a solid flow from them assists in what other techniques I might use. So I'll almost always use the first 4 endocrine glands as I mentioned in a previous video. So I'll quickly go through that part, and then I'll stand and take you through systematically the chakra system in the body and how I work with it. So first, as mentioned before in the other video, a balance at the cervicals, that area, just in the neck, just at the base of the skull, so that I'm assured that there's a sense of an even flow of energy coming down through and into the body. And once that energetic flow has been established, maybe a sense of balance in the tingling in my hands, or the pressure in my hands, or the heat, I then go to the pineal, the gland that's just in the top of the head between the 2 halves of the brain, And here again, working on that basis of a positive and negative, because energy, as I've mentioned before, has a flow to it like electricity. So positive hand, or your dominant hand, goes over the pineal. Your other hand would stay put at the side of the neck as a negative contact point. And once again, we're waiting for the same sensation in the hands as a balance. Then to the pituitary gland, which is just above the bridge of the nose and is a vital part in assisting the body's overall well-being, particularly helping other endocrine glands if they may be having a slight amount of difficulty. Then to the thyroid. The thyroid, as I did mention before, has a tendency to step up and step down the energetic flow, and is important to assisting us in our daily activities. And if it's a little too busy, it's because it's not slowing down and going into the nighttime mode. So once again, a balance in this gland helps to fortify the immune system and helps really energize the entire body through the endocrine system. And that fourth gland, which I would work with, is the thymus gland, which is right at the top of the breastbone, a major player in overall helping the body's immune system, and has a lot to do with a great sense of peace, you might say, at the heart level in the body. And you'll note that in each of these various glands, my hands are probably within an inch or two of the body as an optimum place for sensitivity, at least for me. And you'll note that as I now begin to move toward the chakra system, there's a difference in energetically how far away from the body my perception makes me aware of where the balances are in that particular energetic field. So now I'll just take a moment and I'll stand up and say a few more words before I begin to work in the chakra field. So now, as we begin to work with the chakra system, I mentioned there are a few other factors that are quite different in relationship to this system. In the endocrine system, generally speaking, your dominant hand is the one that leads into working with the different endocrine glands, and your receiving hand, or it tends to work with one of the joints in the body or a negative contact point. The chakra system, at least in my experience, likes to work off of itself, and also the dominant hand will tend to stay put. And for instance, my dominant hand, which for me is a right hand, it will go to the root chakra. That's the one sort of right basically at the base of the pubic bone. It's actually the tail end of the coccyx curving up that forms that energetic field. But it's a very grounding aspect of this technique. And my receiving hand this time, it will go over the second chakra, which is in the lower part. There's a distance away from the body, and it's like an energetic shelf. There's a point at which your hand seems to come to rest on a little bit more denser energy, and then you move your other hand until it finds the same place, and it's not necessarily an even plane. It may vary. Also in this system, you may find that the palms of your hand give you more of a sense of the energetic flow than the tips of your fingers. So you could experiment with that. And as I mentioned in my introduction, it's really important when you're in this system to feel grounded. So make sure you really feel your feet solidly on the ground so that energetic flow can be enhanced through you. Another thing I wanted to mention about the chakra system in particular is it seems to be quite highly affected by both lunar and solar cycles when you're working. And at the dark of the moon, this energetic field seems to draw a bit closer to the body, that more dense energetic shelf. You hit it closer in, and the full moon, it's further away from the body, and let you know it, because the distance in your hands away from the body is just that shelf you hit much sooner. And really dramatic, I found, was that at the time of the summer solstice and the winter solstice, summer solstice is basically more, you might say, more normal distance away from the body, But as you draw into the winter solstice, when the days are getting much shorter, it's like this energetic field also tends to collapse against the body, so that it actually, about 2 or 3 weeks before the winter solstice, it literally comes to rest on the body, and it basically stays there until about 2 or 3 weeks after the solstice. At least this is my experience. And to me, it's a bit of a reminder that, particularly in the northern hemisphere where we live, it's kind of a hibernation time for animals. The trees seem to be going into their cycle of darkness. And so for me, it's maybe a clue that it's the time of year when we should be doing a little bit more to look after ourselves, to be in that place where the body needs care. It doesn't need to be racing all over the place, doing everything under the sun. And I think if we honor that, it makes for a better start to the year, because often we find ourselves in January, because we have been racing all over the place with the holiday season, and it doesn't mean we can't enjoy that, but we've sort of spent a lot of energy, and that's often when the more dominant flu patterns also seem to come in. So I think it's sometimes worth listening to the energetic fields and patterns that surround our body. So as I mentioned, the first and second chakra work together quite beautifully, and the third chakra, the one that is up over the adrenal area, we readjust our hands so that those chakras will work effectively together. In this case, as you probably see, my dominant hand, which is at the root chakra, is a little closer, and the one that's over the adrenal area is now moved a little bit further away. And that's the right distance for these two hands to work together. And as I said before, all you're waiting for is when both hands start to feel the same, whether it's tingling, whether it's heat, whether it's pressure. There'll be a point where they somewhat equalize. And another example of how I find this system works, if you had your hands flat on a body of water and you push down hard on one, the other hand would move up a bit, and vice versa. So it's almost like there's this liquid substance where your hands are kind of tied together even though they aren't touching, and that energetic pattern just feels very soft and wonderful under your hands. So now as we move up the body, the next chakra field relates to the heart chakra. It's spoken of in Eastern teachings for sure, but it's I find it is a real complement to the thymus gland, and these two work together really well. And it's often when you get to this point in this particular technique, if things are fairly intense or fairly near the surface emotionally, this is the place where there might be some tears that will show up, or if not in that sense, a definite release in the body as it's kind of feels that it can breathe again with that energetic release in the heart chakra. So here again, you're working with distances away from the body, and your dominant hand still stays put at the root chakra. And then next we go to the fifth chakra, the throat chakra, and here again we get a feel for what's the right distance away from the body. How do these two chakra fields like to work together? And in this case, it seems like the root chakra wants to be a little further away, and my hand over the throat chakra wants to be a bit closer this time. So it's just, as you're working, it's like you're kind of listening and you're feeling, and you're just give yourself permission to discover, see how this feels to you, and I think you'll enjoy just almost the juiciness of this particular technique. And now we go to the sixth chakra. This is the one that is over the pituitary gland, and once again from Eastern teachings it's spoken of often as the third eye, or that area of potential spiritual focus that can come through this chakra field. And here again, what's the right distances away from the body for this to work? And here, as I said before, dominant hand is still staying put at the root chakra, and my receiving hand is over the chakra over the 6th chakra here. And again, once you have a sense of balance, you shift to the crown chakra with your receiving hand, and your dominant hand stays put at the root chakra. And in this process, here again, there's a difference in how far you may be from away from the body, and often this one will have the crown chakra perception a bit further away than the root chakra. And as you can see, I have fairly long arms, so it's easy for me to reach this far. But if you are working and have slightly shorter arms, what's important here would be to make sure that your receiving hand gets actually over the crown chakra, and you can directionally point more to the root chakra so that that field is encompassed properly that way. But it's a definite way to include the whole chakra field. And as you're working here, there's just this amazing sensation of a lot of emotional energy that's been worked with, that's been relaxed, that's been set free. And because of that, and because I mentioned the factor of how chakras basically relate to being spinning discs, it's like the work you've done and what has been set free at this time, when you're working with the various balances, it's like all that energy is sort of resting just over the top of the body, over the various chakras. So when I work with that, when I finish up, I have a sense of balance in my hands. I'll just tilt my hands slightly so the palms are facing one another, and I very slowly bring that energy that's been set free towards the 3rd chakra and lift it up to clear that energetically off of the body. And what's important to remember here, sometimes if you've been working with very intense situations, that could be, you really feel the intensity of almost like you're moving thick substance that has to be lifted up, so you can even find a pressure against your hands as you're trying to lift them. It's not like you're doing vibrational dusting, you're actually doing something that's allowing what's been set free to truly be set free from the body and let go. So that's some of my thoughts around how I work with the chakra system. I'm not someone who has put the years into it that some of the people who do this work are truly experts at it, but I felt this system really helped complement me in my work in working with the endocrine system, and once again with the deeper relaxation that takes place in the body as you work with the various layers in the body that are just crying often from our busy schedules for that deeper sense of relaxation and peace. So now I'll go back to completing this cycle with a balance of the cervicals. So here, after having worked with the chakra system, much like when I've worked with the endocrine system, I feel it's important to come back to make sure that this area around the cervicals is balanced. As I've said before, it's much like a circuit breaker in the body, and when we've really intensified the current in the chakra field or any other systems that we may work with, we come back just to ensure there's a sense of balance, that's a sense of flow that's now been established in a very peaceful and powerful way in the body, has a chance for full release in the body, and that nothing has been impaired. And it's rare that something has gone off, but I think it's also a beautiful way to ensure that that balance is still present. And for me personally, when I finish a cycle like this, it's also an ideal opportunity for me to give thanks for the gift of life, and the gift of life that we've been able to share together in blessing the body. So once again, thank you very much for participating, and I trust this process that we've shared today will be valuable for you in your practice, whatever that might be.